Maybe you can relax in a haunted house, but I can't.
Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thanks again to anyone that's subscribed to the channel. If you do want to support and encourage me, then please subscribe and like the videos. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about a book I've just read that seems to have divided opinion on YouTube, and I thought it was brilliant. I'll tell you why in a second. I read it for Horror Mayhem. So when I first announced what books I was going to read for Horror Mayhem, there's a few videos back where I talked about what books I was going to read. I didn't have this book, but I did hear about it. I heard a few people talk about it, and then I saw it in Forbidden Planet, so I bought it, and I really enjoyed it. So, what is it? Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw, who's a Malaysian author. This came out really recently, so this came out in... Yeah, it literally came out in 2021, so this is really new. As far as I know, it's only on hardback and Kindle. It might be on paperback now, but I've only ever seen it in hardback. It's really short. It's worth the money though, so if you do see it around, it's a really good book, I think. I mean, there are some people that have been disappointed by it, but I've had a look at why I've watched their videos that tell you why they didn't like it, and I completely don't relate to what they said. What an amazing cover. What a really evocative, fantastic, alluring, horrific cover. This is based in Japan. It's referencing Japanese folklore. So the demon that gets, or the spirit that gets entangled in these five main characters, directly comes from Japanese folklore. So there's lots of yokai images around the Japanese mansion in the whole story, and it's a very you get this real sense of Japanese tradition and folklore all over the book anyway, but the spirit that ends up being what these five characters have to deal with is a particular yokai which is from Japanese tradition, and it's a bridal woman that literally has no face and just a mouth that's got blackened teeth. So that's why it's called that, because that's what they're dealing with. But don't want to spoil anything too much, but that's what the reference to the from the title is, and that's what the and the Japanese folklore element is a huge part of the book, and I think a huge part of the appeal of the book as well. So the premise is that these five characters are meeting up because two of them are getting married. A third one in the group is going to be the person doing the ceremony, if you like. And the other two are come along because the groom wants them to come along. But the five of them have got a very complex relationship. So there's lots of deep-seated rivalry. There's lots of bitterness in the past. There's lots of distrust. There is some secrets in the group. So there's lots of things happening that get developed in the first sort of 2/3 of the book. And I think they get developed really well. So you do get a real sense of the issues in the group and the reason why they don't really get on, and the reason why it's very tense anyway, regardless of anything supernatural happening. And I think that's done in a way that works better than just like five innocent people that seem to just be getting on really well and then something supernatural happens. I think it works really well that you've already got this tension building just from them meeting up, and some of them don't want to be there, some of them are there under false pretenses, some of them weren't very happy about some of the other people being there. It's very it's one of those kind of knife edge situations anyway, and there's lots of resentfulness and lots of swearing. So yeah, if you don't like swearing in your novels, then there's a lot of it in this. But it works because I think it does create these real characters. So I thought the characters were very believable, and I rattled through this because it is short, But even if it's short, sometimes if it's not really pulling you in, doesn't matter how short it is. Sometimes it takes a while to read it anyway. But I did read this in a few hours, so I did have a break in the middle. After about 70 pages, I did some stuff and came back to it. But yeah, very quick read. So I think it works as a quick read as well. So sometimes horror novels can spend absolutely ages building up the characters and the world building, but they don't actually build any tension until a couple of hundred pages in, and then it starts kind of happening, if you like, and you start feeling like this event is happening and it all comes together. I think with this one, Cassandra Khaw starts doing that straight away, and I think that's really effective. So right from the first chapter, you've got this tension building with these characters that aren't getting on, and it establishes what the plot is, why they're there, and there's this old they know it's a haunted mansion they've gone to, so this supernatural spirit that's there, you're kind of half expecting it to appear. I mean, clearly you can tell something from the cover, but also the characters are kind of half expecting something to happen, or at least that's the reason why the bride particularly wanted to be there, because it was her dream to go to a haunted mansion and stay overnight, sort of thing. So there's some expectations, and there is a little bit of self-awareness as well. So there's one moment where one of the characters says, us two are going to be the first in line from this spirit, because we're those kind of people, those kind of characters that always get done first in the films. So there's that kind of not exactly fourth wall dialogue going on, but definitely an element of self-awareness where the characters have got some knowledge of horror tropes. But that all adds to it. I think it's quite cool that when it's getting spooky, they're all aware of that. But the final part of it, the final third, if you like, when it all gets really bloody, happens very quickly, and it's kind of almost, well, I won't spoil it by saying exactly what happens, but it is very quick, and I think it's really effective like that. So it could have dragged out forever, and it could have been longer, but I think it works as it is. I do think it's a very successful book. So yeah, I think it was really good. And also, I think the way that Cassandra Khaw's written this, clearly she does love language. It's a very poetic style of writing. So some of it's quite direct and very graphic sometimes, but there's a lot of poetic language. It's almost poetry, literally, in some of the passages in the book. So I'm going to read you a couple of examples of that so that you can see what I mean. So, the ceiling ripened with bodies, yokai bleeding from the other rooms to come gawk, first oozing through the cracks in the architecture, slithering rills of wet ink before regaining three-dimensionality. They leered at us from the wood and the paper, faces and palms pressed against what now felt like a sheeting of glass. It was as though we stood in a vivarium, had always stood in display, surrounded by children, but unconscious of that truth until now. But even that impression gave way, slowly, as more painted bodies, some no more than scrawled lines, others magnificently detailed, crowded the ceiling, and it began to distend, almost as if it turned gelatinous. Under a postular overhang of grinning onlookers, our group turned to each other. "Now what?" Lynn demanded. Faze sat keening into his hands a broken howl that wouldn't stop or waver, no matter which of us came over to whisper platitudes into his ear. He convulsed with his misery, scratched at his cheeks until the skin tore into translucent ribbons, embedding itself under his nails. Blood ran in thick stripes, muddying his hands. I won't say too much more because there are too many spoilers, but you can see how her writing is very poetic and quite gripping because of that, and not too poetic that you're like, what are you on about? So I think that's really cool. So clearly, good writer, a good story, based on Japanese folklore, which is really quite different, I think, and certainly for non-Japanese audiences, I'd expect. And yeah, I think it's done really well, and the size is perfect. So the tension starts happening straight away. I was gripped straight away, and the ending is quite sudden, but I think it kind of works like that. Anyway, I won't say too much because I've probably spoiled too much already. Don't know. But anyway, I read this one from Horror Mayhem, which is a month of horror books or horror stories, and I'm going to delve into some more, and then I'll be posting a video towards the end of the month about more Horror Mayhem, but nothing but Blackened Teeth. I would recommend it. I think it was really good. Thank you. Bye.